Welcome to Prime Time, a show about issues relevant to older adults and their families. I'm Susan Hoskins, the host of the show. I'm the executive director of the Princeton Senior Resource Center, the go-to place for seniors and their families in the greater Princeton area. My guests today are Jill Jacklin from Secure at Home and Sharon Hurley from Buckingham Place. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
So I thought we would start off today by just finding out a little bit about your programs. Our topic for today is helping your loved ones stay at home. And there are a lot of different things that contribute to helping family members stay at home. And we do know that 87% of the population that AARP polled said they wanted to stay in their own homes. But oftentimes family members get concerned and say, you know, you're not so able to keep up with things. Oftentimes that starts with things like landscaping or just see some of those little signs. And you worry that your family member really shouldn't be staying home, or you worry that they're home alone. And I know that all of us work really hard to help people stay in their homes as long as that's possible. So let me start with you, Jill. Can you talk a little bit about Secure at Home and tell us what your program does?
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. Secure at Home is a membership-based program that enables older adults to remain in their homes as long as possible. What happens is a person joins the program, there is a membership fee, and we go out there with our care manager and spend anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours really taking down all of that important information. First, we get to know who the person is. It's interesting, so many of the people that we've met have had and continue to have very full and rich lives, and so we really like to know what they've been doing throughout their life and let them know who we are as well. So we do a care, we take all the information and turn it to a care plan. We find out what are their medical diagnoses, where are their emergency contacts, who's their health care proxy, power of attorney, do they have all of those documents, who's got those documents, who are their physicians, what are their medications, do they have a summer home, a winter home, who can walk the dog, who knows where there's a key to the house. All of that is just in case. Who knows when something, you know as well, things turn on a dime, particularly with this weather and the ice and everything. So it's
an evaluation also
Exactly.
of what's working and what might not be working. Because all of us have things that are working really well for us and that we do just fine. I can, my mom cooks just fine, but maybe she isn't able to get out and mow the grass. So we're looking at...
But to that point, when you were saying about keeping our loved ones at home, one of the key things is actually taking a look at the home. And so the other piece that we'll do is we'll literally do a walkthrough and notice that, the frayed carpeting might be coming up, or there's not two railings heading down to the basement. And did you notice that your loved one might be clutching on the furniture because they're losing their balance a little? So it's really just to see, to your point, how they live in their home, which is an important piece. The other pieces that we do is we have a 24/7 phone coverage, and that is manned by social workers from our office. We are an initiative of Jewish Family and Children's Service, and we are non-sectarian. And that particular piece has come up everything from literally my spouse has fallen and I need some help, to what is the name of that handyman because it's 5 o'clock on Saturday and my door won't close. So we've gotten all of those calls, which is so important. Some of the other quick pieces to your saying about a handyman is we have developed relationships with various we call them member maintenance, but maintenance people. So it's the electrician, the plumber, the handyman. Many of them do give discounts to our members, but I think most importantly is we've checked their insurance, we've gotten good referrals, we follow up to make sure that the work was done. If it was not done and that we have had that happen, we go back to the vendor and we say, look, this is the story. You want to be one of our preferred providers. And so we do that as well. And then we also do care management because, again, I'm sure you saw this as well, how many people slipped on the ice. And so we had a member who called us, took her husband to the hospital, couldn't get home. We were there as care managers, and so we do that as well. That is some of the the sample of what we do. And then, of course, all the information referral with home health aides, with questions about long-term care insurance, is an important piece as well.
I know that an awful lot, as as case managers, I think all three of us as social workers carry an entire Rolodex around in our heads.
Absolutely.
Of course.
And one of the things that's so hard for people who are particularly living alone, I see this a lot with widowed women.
Right.
Who do I call for a plumber? How do I know that that person's going to be reliable? We've done programs recently on fraud and scams, and older people are particularly vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And so they worry about when something breaks down, who do I bring in? Or I need to have someone come in and help me fix lunch every day, but how am I going to find a reliable person? So having someone that they really trust,
Right.
whose judgment they really trust, is important.
Right.
We run into a lot of the same kinds of things in our Partners in Caring program,
Sure.
which I know you're very familiar with, which is a partnership between several organizations, including Jewish Family and Children's Services and Enable, and is funded by the United Way, where we're providing many of those same services. I think one of the big distinctions is that you have that 24/7 coverage.
We do.
That we don't.
We do.
And
And it also allows us to really
more-
focus on the individual. It's
Right.
much more of a concierge kind of program where we can really do that one-on-one work. And one other point, it was interesting that you brought up in terms of working with widows. We often, yes, we have that. We also find people who say, oh, I can take care of it, my spouse will take care of it, or my children will take care of it. And you and I both know, with all due respect to people's family members, is they don't necessarily know which home health aide to call, or they don't necessarily
Right.
know, they're going to start looking through a yellow pages. So to your point about, sort of in the community being experts, it's very important.
Well, I think we all find it. It's especially challenging when you're trying to help a parent who lives at a distance in a community
Right.
you're not used to. You know, during the summer, visiting my in-laws,
Right.
I was searching the phone book, I was calling senior centers, I was trying everything I could to find the services that I know at my fingertips.
And
here.
you're in the field.
Yeah, and
Right.
it really helped me appreciate how baffling it is for someone. And we all have a lot of clients where the adult children live in another community. They're busy raising their own families, they're busy with jobs,
Sure.
and they care very much about mom
Absolutely.
and or dad, but they don't have the time to be here all the time. And one of the things that I've heard a lot from people who have joined Secure at Home is that it's their insurance policy to reassure their children
Right.
that they will have somebody they can call, that there's somebody right here who can
Right.
look into it. You know,
Right.
when my father-in-law had a heart episode, we got a call from the hospital. Then the question is, who goes?
Right.
Right.
So difficult.
Does, who makes the 3,000-mile journey and how quickly? It turned out he had stopped taking his medication. Within 24 hours, they had him back on his medication, and nobody needed to go. But I think one of the real values of having a geriatric care manager, Secure at Home, Partners in Caring in place, is that someone can make that assessment and let the family know whether to come, when
Right.
to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think the other thing that I hear as feedback that's so valuable is having one person. That part of what we saw in the field before is that people were having to put those services together for themselves or
Right.
for their parents. And so they were having to make 8 phone calls, one for the meals, one for the transportation, one for caregiver counseling, one for the
Absolutely.
landscaper, and trying to put all those pieces together and trying to stay on top of the financial things. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that one-stop philosophy that we're both using
it's
now.
so important, that one-stop shopping. That's what's so great when we go and we do this assessment, is that we spend the time, we get to know who they are, and we get to know their personality. So we know what they're going to want and what they're not going to want. And we just even recently had this example. We have a couple, the husband's got some medical conditions, and the wife was just not feeling great. She wanted to have somebody possibly this weekend, and it just wasn't going to work out. She didn't want to meet with the home health. She didn't want to meet them. She just wanted somebody to show up. And so we spoke about it, and we know her personality, and so we backed down a little bit because we knew she just was not feeling great. Let's give it a little bit of time. Anyway, we sent some communication to her. All is fine. But knowing who that person is, as opposed to just sort of saying, no, this is how it has to be done, without knowing that her personality needed to relax a little bit. She needed to just settle down, and then we would be able to work with her best.
Or, you know, because you're making a regular contact. And
exactly.
Sharon, we'll get to you in a second, but I think also that you find this in your setting, that you get to know somebody and then you go,
absolutely.
Usually this is a really vibrant, energetic, talkative person, and he or she is really quiet and withdrawn today. Something's wrong.
Absolutely.
And even though that person may not be aware of it themselves, you know them well enough to know that.
Right. We do a monthly hello. And it's either an email or a phone call, and it can be more frequent depending on what's going on. When we speak to somebody, you know, it's interesting, I'm sure you see this too, so many of the older adults who are in this community are so independent that they don't even want to be a burden to us. So they won't tell us that they're having cataract surgery, they won't tell us that they're having a test because they're having some pulmonary issues. We call, and then we hear everything, and then we'll say, you know what, it's next week, we're going to call you next week. Oh, really? Oh, I appreciate that. But it's interesting, it's not so much that they're reaching out, it's us sort of saying, you know what, we are here for you and we want to be able to be in contact, to your point.
And because you've initiated the call, it's not,
exactly.
It's not me calling out for help.
Exactly, exactly.
What do you do for the people, you know, let's say an adult child says, wow, this is a great program, I really want this for my mom and dad. And you go and you present it, and the parents say, I don't need help, I'm fine. How do you?
Well, we actually have a few families like that. We actually have an in-law who has purchased the program for his in-laws, and they aren't really taking advantage of it, and it's been challenging. Self-determination is huge. They need to make that decision. We both know that you cannot force somebody to join the program. And so what we've done is, it's interesting, we've actually worked with the family to say, okay, let's sort of respect that, but let's be in contact with them, whether it's once a month, once every few months. And, you know, I like to say we're running a business, but we do it with a nonprofit head. That, you know what, we're not getting paid technically for that call because they haven't really joined, but we understand sort of the importance of what we're trying to do. And it's working with the family about what would meet their needs. And if it's slowly...
You're cultivating clients like we cultivate donors, right? And sometimes you need to have contact and, again, build up trust.
Exactly what it is. It's the trust
be
piece
there. So that one of the things that I always find phenomenal is how many people don't think of us as a resource.
Right.
You know, it's like all of a sudden there's a crisis and there's, oh my gosh, who am I going to call?
Yes.
And so that cultivation makes a big difference. If people have been coming into the Suzanne Patterson Center for classes for months, maybe that helps them call. If they have a neighbor who used our services, maybe that makes them think to call. But that cultivation and the...
Absolutely. And we say to people, and I'm sure you see this too, I'm fine, I don't need your services. And then unfortunately something happens. What we like to say to people is join the program and take advantage of what we have to offer. You know, may you never need our emergency services, but there's other pieces of the program. We didn't even talk about the volunteer chore corps. We have members of the community who will go in and sort of what we say your non-recurring tasks of changing the light bulb, getting on a ladder, checking the smoke detector batteries. We had some of our members who traveled for a number of months and couldn't get their suitcases back up to the attic. So take advantage of that. It's so much easier than when you call us in a crisis. We'll do crisis management because that's what we do, but to not know who you are and know your emergency contacts, it's so much more difficult.
Now, when we're talking about the kinds of services that help people stay at home, one of the services that we use a lot or recommend to people a lot is the programs at Buckingham Place. And so, Sharon, I want to welcome you and ask you to talk a little bit about the programs that are offered at Buckingham Place and the way that a lot of people think of Buckingham Place as an assisted living, a place where they have to move to and leave their home. But I know that you offer a lot of other programs as well.
Well, thank you, Susan. I do think we're kind of one of those best kept secrets in this area because, you know, visually the building is beautiful and people may know us as assisted living, but we have a separate section of the building that is licensed for daycare. And oftentimes people don't know what an adult daycare is. There's a few different types of daycare that's available. We have 2 different models within our building. One is called the Social Club, and one is called the Gallery, which is our licensed medical day program. And what I find is that I have to do a lot of education. I have to take time to really explain the differences between a social and a medical day program.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
I'd be happy to. People are oftentimes familiar with the senior center and what happens at a senior center. They know that they go to the senior center and they're able to participate in activities. Well, oftentimes what happens is people start to maybe become uncomfortable with making decisions on their own. So now it's hard to self-select. It's hard to go in and say, this is where I want to sit, this is who I want to be with, these are the classes that I want to take. And so they need a little bit more assistance. Some people may have some depression, and we find that even in this area where there are many 55-plus communities, people are feeling isolated. They're getting a bit depressed because they're spending too much time by themselves. Oftentimes the families will say, no more driving. So now the keys have been taken away, and a bit of that independence has now started to pretty much suffer, and people sometimes start to feel a bit angry about that. So a social day program is a wonderful first step because it's a shorter day, it's about 4 hours. People can have some short-term memory loss in a social day program. They can have some depression in a social day program. It is not monitored by a nurse, though, so in that particular program, they need to be capable of taking care of their own bathroom needs. They need to be able to get from one location to the other with some assistance, meaning we have someone as an activities coordinator that will greet them at the door. We provide transportation to and from their home.
That's a really important piece, especially when
they're no longer driving.
Right, and I have a lot of clients where the parents are living with their adult children, and the adult children go off to work, and they worry that mom's just home watching television all day.
That's right, or sleeping.
Sleeping, and that she's not getting the interaction and stimulation.
Right.
And want to make sure that mom's safe and okay and getting a good hot lunch and that kind of thing too. And so the social and medical programs are a really good option for mom to have something to go to, and it gives her a sense of purpose and direction. This is my club. This is my group.
That's right.
And
that's right. And oftentimes that's what you hear is, you know, these are my friends. You know, they come and now they have a group of friends that they do activities with. And in the social day club, we actually do activities even away from the building, where we'll go to a local restaurant for lunch, or we'll go to a local museum, something that's pretty close. We had established a very nice relationship with the Arts Council in Princeton, and they did an 8-week series called an Arts Sampler. And so our social day members went over and had just a fantastic experience of doing drawing, and they actually saw an exhibit opening. So it was really an experience that they would not have been able to have had they not been a part of the social club.
But I think that also validates that feeling of I'm still an active member of society, you know, that I'm not just languishing, and that I have something to contribute. When the family gets together for dinner tonight, I have something to talk about. I went on a trip today.
That's right. And you hear them encouraging each other. You know, sometimes when people come in, they are a little bit angry. You know, their families have said, I don't want you to be alone, and they might feel, you know, as you said, that they're just fine. They can be just fine. And so they encourage each other and they say, listen, you know what, it's so much better to be here and chat with each other and, you know, share some of our difficulties that maybe we don't want our family members to have to be responsible for. And so
Or
they
to know
share
about.
resources. Exactly. So, you know, it's just such a wonderful experience. We actually have one of our social day members who is 99 years old.
Wow.
And she comes 3 days a week for 4 hours. And so, you know, she loves it. You know, she said, this is just the thing for me.
Right. Well, you know, it's one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking earlier, Jill, that it really isn't about age.
No.
It's about ability, it's about
Absolutely.
what's happened in your life. And,
No question.
and I, you know, when you were talking about that, how important self-determination is, because I think we all try to support that, sometimes also the adult children are over-worried
Yes.
because they have friends or, you know, the other set of in-laws ran into difficulty, and
Right. Or they feel
and they
guilty.
don't need to
Sure.
be, yeah, they don't need to be as worried as they are, and so it helps to have that assessment. But
That's
it's
right.
important. There is no magical age when
Nope.
you can't make decisions for yourself, when you need to start going to programs or not living at home. And that's
Right.
why I think all three of our programs really like to tailor things to the individual.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I know that oftentimes people have kind of a different idea in their head until they come and they try it out. And one of the things that we do is we do what we call a guest day. So it's a day where we invite the family to come in, and the person that's participating would have about 4 hours to actually try out the program. It's a complimentary day. Of course, we treat them to lunch, and Buckingham is kind of well known for our food. We do a fabulous job cooking on site. And so they're then able to really experience the activities without any obligation of making a decision right then and there.
Right.
So it really helps, because oftentimes people then go away and go, oh, that's nothing like what I thought. And so oftentimes if we're able to convince, you know, the families to bring their loved ones in, or maybe their neighbor. I just recently had a neighbor bring their next door neighbor over, because they said, you know what, we think you should just at least check this out. So it's been a growing program.
It's that cultivation
Talk,
piece.
yes, yeah. Talk a little bit about the medical daycare
Okay.
then, as distinct from the social day.
Well, in the medical program, we have a registered nurse that is overseeing the medical needs of the people that participate. So in addition to people that may have some memory issues, dementia, or Alzheimer's, we may also have people that have diabetes, so they need to have their insulin checked. They may need to have medication monitored, and we can administer that because we have an RN. We have some people that may have Parkinson's disease, or may have had a stroke and now have some limitations. So we're able to give services to all of the people, including having physical therapy on site. So it's another wonderful option for the families. It's one less
Because
appointment.
also, if you're providing transportation, then the physical therapy is happening, and the daughter's not taking time off from work
That's
to get
right. That's
dad
right. So
to
it all
physical
happens
therapy
on
in
the
middle of
same
the
day.
and-
That's
yeah.
right, at the same time.
Which gives families back some quality of life
It
on the
does.
weekend, I think. And sometimes we forget how important it is to have time with your parents that's not running around to appointments.
Right.
That's right. The other thing with the medical day program is we have a full-time social worker, and she really assists the family with finding community resources. And oftentimes we're all getting to know each other's programs, and so she then is also able to kind of be that person that's going to reach out and say, okay, now here are some of the other things that you might not know about. And so the family, it just, they're like, oh, wow, jackpot, you know, here we have, you know, the opportunity for a day program, but now we also can find out about funding opportunities, which
and caregiver support programs.
Which
I also wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about your respite program, because I think that's another thing for family caregivers. That's an important resource that a person may be in your program or our program, but use Buckingham's
needs
for
respite. Well, there's a few ways to look at respite. One can be utilizing the day program. So now the caregiver, which could be the spouse or could be the child, is using it for the medical or social day as respite. Now they are able to go to their own doctor's appointments or do shopping or visit with their girlfriends, or the husbands can play golf, you know, that sort of thing, so the daytime. But we also have, because we are also an assisted living, have beautiful furnished apartments that people are able to stay in overnight for short-term stays. This can be as short as a week. It can be up to 60 days. So it gives people an opportunity to, if they're thinking about assisted living, they can come with that idea with no obligation. They can come try it out. Or many people need respite care because their caregiver either needs to go away on a business trip, or perhaps the family needs a family vacation. So now the person can come, stay in respite care with full services. So they're being taken care of by a nurse, by activities coordinators. They get all of their meals and all of their care taken care of. So it's just, you know, a really wonderful option that people don't even know exists, and most assisted livings do offer, you know, this option.
Now it's important for us, before we wrap up today, to talk about payment, because I think that's something, it's always a big decision to go from not needing services to needing services, whether that's the person or their family, and one of the big questions that comes up is payment. So can you talk about how people pay for these services?
Sure. Secure at Home is membership based, and so per year for a couple it's $350, and for an individual it's $300, and that includes most of your services. Out-of-pocket services such as handyman, electricians, while we will negotiate the discount, that does come from the individual, as well as home health aid, as well as we also work with transportation entities. So that is the fee for us, and that is an annual fee.
And those are private pay. The person would have to pay that out of their own.
Paid
it doesn't come from Medicare.
Nope, and it's not covered from long-term care insurance.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Right. So what we like to say is, for less than $1 a day, you can have your security while you're staying at home.
Right. Now, if a person did have home health aides coming in, though, like 4 hours a day or something, isn't a portion of that eligible for home health, for long-term care reimbursement?
It depends. Many people have an elimination period with their policy, 90 days, 120 days, so it depends. It depends what's going on in their life.
Right. So if you're looking at it for a long period of time, you don't want to have your long-term care policy kick in if you're only going to need it for 30 days.
Exactly.
Right. And every long-term care policy is different too. So, you know, the fine print is really important as to what actually is covered and what isn't. Most these days, long-term care policies pay for adult daycare, but not all. So again, you have to find out about, you know, the fine print of that. With our programs, there is a private pay, which you can do on 1 day a week. We do the billing at the end of each month based on attendance. So if you don't come, you don't pay. So that's a wonderful option. But there are also other funding sources. One of the funding sources that we use a lot is the respite grant programs that are both through the county and also through the Alzheimer's Association. Some of that usually just pays for a portion of the cost, but there are programs like the Veterans program. Our Medical Day program has been certified by the Veterans Administration to pay for 2 days a week for veterans for care. So it's a wonderful option that people don't know about. I'm passionate about talking about it. I go out and do community presentations about veterans benefits, and so I'd love to talk to anybody about how that all works. I help people, you know, line by line to do the application. The other thing is Medicaid. Medicaid does pay for qualified medically needy people, so and that can pay for 5 days a week.
And any of us could help people understand what programs they're eligible for, help you get connected with the county programs that help you apply for and qualify for the Medicaid programs. There will be information posted on the show about how to contact each of us for more information. We could keep talking for a really long time. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but I think it is important for people and families to know that there are a lot of options. And Sharon, as you mentioned, whether you're an adult child caregiver, more and more children are becoming caregivers too, or a spousal caregiver, that all of these programs can really help you to take care of somebody who's not fully able to take care of themselves. And it doesn't mean you have to leave home. So these are some of the things that this community offers in terms of helping your loved ones stay at home. Thank you for joining us.